Whether we realize it or not, we're all facing this fundamental choice in life. Are we just letting things happen to us, kind of living on autopilot? Or are we actually at the helm, steering our own ship with true, authentic intention? That's exactly what we're going to dive into today.
So let me just ask you this, straight up. Have you ever had that feeling like you're just going through the motions? Wake up, work, sleep, and then do it all over again. Almost like you're a passenger in your own life. It's a really common feeling, and it points to a massive choice that we all have to make.
When you really boil it down, there are two basic ways to live your life. You can live by habit, that's the autopilot mode, it's totally passive. It feels easy, kind of like you're just floating down a river, letting the current take you wherever. Or you can live by intention. That means actively grabbing the wheel, taking the helm of your own ship, and deliberately charting a course.
So what does living by intention actually mean? Well, it's a deliberate state of being where your internal values, the stuff you really truly believe in, are the things that actually govern your external actions. The most important part here? It's a conscious choice to turn off that default autopilot setting we all have.
Okay, so this brings us to our first big idea, the path of alignment. And look, this isn't just about wishful thinking or dreaming about a better life. It's about making a very real, very deliberate shift from just being a passive observer to becoming an active participant in your own story.
And let's be totally clear about something. Living intentionally is not the easy route. It is work. It demands active engagement. You've got to actually plan what you're doing, foresee the obstacles that might pop up, imagine the outcomes you want, make firm decisions, and then, and this is probably the hardest part, not waver from that decision when things get tough.
Think about the results in your life as fruit. A life lived on autopilot, it produces inconsistent fruit. You never really know what you're going to get. There's a lot of uncertainty. But a life of intention, that produces fruit that is perfectly consistent with your deepest commitments. Finally, your actions start to match your goals.
So how do we actually get that consistency? How do we make that happen? Well, it starts with the next absolutely critical piece of the puzzle, aligning our heart and our mind. This, right here, is the source of real internal stability and true authenticity.
So let's break this down. Think of your inner world as having two main pillars. First, there's the heart. This is your core identity, your deepest needs, your true passions. When you understand this, it gives you internal stability. You really know who you are. Then, there's the mind. This is how you express all that, your personality, your creativity, your values. Getting that part right is what gives you authenticity. You act in a way that is true to yourself.
And when you get those two pillars lined up, man, the benefits are just profound. Imagine it. You stop questioning your own identity. You don't feel like you have to wear a mask for different people or different situations. You can finally step off that endless treadmill of competing for meaning or a sense of belonging. Life stops being a stressful competition and starts becoming this incredible process of discovery.
And really, this is the ultimate goal. This is the mountaintop we're climbing towards. To get to that place where there is zero daylight between who you know you are on the inside and what you're actually doing on the outside. Your identity and your actions become one and the same. They become synonymous.
Now, this all sounds pretty amazing, right? But, and it's a big but, there's a major challenge here. To live this way, you have to embrace a totally different definition of success, and that means you have to actively reject the scorecard that society is constantly trying to hand you. The big force we're all up against is this idea called systematized worth. It's basically society's tendency to confuse who a person is with what they've achieved. You see it all the time, right? The first question people ask is, so what do you do? Not so, who are you? Our identity gets all tangled up with our productivity.
This leaves us with another really clear choice. We can either follow society's script and spend our lives building platforms, chasing visibility, fame, and external validation, often exchanging who we really are just to be seen, or we can choose the intentional path, planting gardens. That's all about quietly nurturing real growth, genuine connections, and finding validation from the inside out. And here is a really tough pill to swallow. When you choose to plant gardens instead of building platforms, you will often be rarely perceived as successful by the outside world's standards. But you have to remember, that's just because you're playing a totally different game, with a much more meaningful way to win.
All right, let's pull all these ideas together now with one final powerful analogy that really makes this whole choice feel concrete and immediate. Let's talk about the ship.
So let's think about what it actually feels like to be on these two different journeys. Living by habit is like having the ship on autopilot. Yeah, the ship is moving, but it's just following the currents of your emotions and getting blown around by the winds of social pressure. Living with intention means you are standing at the helm, and that takes constant attention, constant effort. You're forcing against the waves. It's a lot harder.
But here's the kicker. Here's the ultimate payoff. That ship on autopilot, it often drifts miles and miles away from where it was supposed to go without anyone even realizing it. It ends up somewhere totally random. But the ship with the captain at the helm, despite all the hard work, despite fighting the waves, it is the only one that arrives exactly where it intended to go.
And you know, when you strip it all away, that's what this boils down to. This isn't just some small lifestyle tweak. This is the great battle of our lives. Will we choose to live with the passion and the effort that comes from being at the helm, or will we just settle for the apathy of drifting along?
So as we finish up, I'm just going to leave you with one simple question. Take a really honest look at your life, at your decisions, your daily actions, and just ask yourself, who is steering your ship?